What's up, world of podcast? Shay Baby here.
And Charlie.
And welcome back to
We the Jerry podcast.
Yet again for episode 4. I'm lit. Alright, the episodes are getting better. Gotta give us a little bit of credit, okay?
Yeah, that first one was horrible. So if you're still here, thank you so much. And a lot of you are. We really appreciate. Much appreciate.
Also, yes, shout out to all of you that started following us on IG, because I really appreciate that. Now we have like 41 followers. So, talk to your friends, tell your grandma if she can handle stuff like this, or, just talk to someone, please.
Your grandma should be able to handle this today, because today we are actually taking a break from a serial killer case. And that is intentional. And we did something fun this week, actually. We gave you guys the option to vote for the case that we were going to do for our 4th episode. We gave you 3 options. The first option was...
Oh, girl, don't point at me. I'm high right now.
Okay, so...
I was like, I don't know unless I'm, like, reading it off of something at this moment. It's the Dyatlov Pass.
Yes, the Dyatlov Pass incident.
The Dyatlov Pass.
It's pronounced a million different ways, honestly, so I
Dyatlov.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Okay.
So that was the first one, and I'm not going to lie, that was going to...
Oh, I know the second one.
Okay, so the first one was definitely actually my vote. I'm really excited to cover that case. So, option 2. What was case number 2?
The Unabomber.
The Unabomber. The Unabomber. Ted Kaczynski. And...
Another Ted.
Oh, yeah, but...
We're going to have to wait a minute if you ever want to cover that one, because...
We're definitely going to cover that one, because I have to admit, it's one of my favorites. Yes, there's this Netflix show, and I can't remember the actor's name, and I can never remember the actor when it comes to it. So next episode, I'll tell you guys.
I feel like in some of the episodes, you've, like, mentioned, like, actors in, like, certain movies and stuff, and you haven't been able to figure it out.
It was Jodie Foster. Remember we said, I wish my mom,
this just seems
celebrity mom. Yeah, so next episode, you'll get that, okay? The actor I'm talking about. But did a really good, like, limited series on Netflix, about the Unabomber, where he played the lead detective on the case. Anyway.
I'll have to watch.
I'm really excited to cover that case too, but it was not the winner either.
Nope. Then we move on to the third.
And the third was?
The Salem Witch Trials.
And this one actually won by a landslide, which is kind of funny because we also... I love it. Do not cut that. You hear me? Do not cut that, Shay Baby.
I'm a pig over here.
Okay, so I was not surprised that this case actually won, but we did get a comment that it said that everybody knows this case, the Salem Witch Trials, which is true.
Who doesn't love a good witch, though?
What I decided to do to make it a little more exciting than everything else out there is I decided to kind of also include, or basically cover, where did witches come from, leading up to and including the Salem Witch Trials. So I'm going to give you guys some
the question.
Give you guys a lot of back history today too. So I've got 3 pages of research to cover, so I'm going to go ahead and jump into this. And your girl went hard, I did.
I did.
Mm-hmm.
Your girl went hard.
So let's go back over 20,000 years ago. Now, this was my first line, and my first immediate thought when I wrote this was, in Harry Potter Chamber of Secrets.
Girl.
When he finds the diary.
We've been over this.
And it goes over.
I haven't watched any of the Harry Potters.
Oh my God, I keep forgetting.
Do not come at me, all right? Y'all do not come at me.
Oh, then you don't know the reference, but they'll know the reference. When Harry finds Tom Riddle's diary and he's writing in it, he's like, let's go back in time, yada, 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 and the pages all flip backwards.
Nerd stuff.
Okay, so anyway.
You just made a Harry Potter reference.
So let's go back.
A nerd.
A little over 20,000 years ago. There was the belief in sacred goddesses and other female deities. Okay?
Deities,
same thing. In Greek mythology, Circe, she lured men with her beauty and honey wine, and then she turned them into pigs with the touch of her magic staff. Even before that, it's recorded, the Hebrews believed in the goddess of Lilith, a goddess with flowing red hair who preyed on newborns in the night and would steal men's seed.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe these women that are stealing the babies could have like babies on their own. So they came up with a theory like, oh, they're stealing the babies in the middle of the night. That's how they get their baby. That's weird.
There's an actual whole psychological diagnosis these days for that, for women who steal newborns who can't have a baby or just had a baby that
That's
passed
just
away.
crazy. How you gonna steal somebody else's baby?
So, the Egyptians worshipped the goddess Isis, the goddess of healing and magic.
That's me.
Mm-hmm.
Shit, why'd you say it like that? You said,
well, because I love
Isis.
Egyptian mythology.
Mythology in a whole is just very.
It is.
It's consuming.
Yep. So, Turkey. Not that this isn't really a whole goddess situation, but still, Turkey initially believed in the wise women, and they too were regarded as having magical abilities. So, that poses the question: how did these early beliefs in goddesses and other female deities influence what would become a more modern belief in witches? Though some goddesses were feared, most were worshipped and represented a woman's natural connection with Mother Nature, fertility, and healing abilities.
Yes. Y'all hear that, men tuning in?
We're going to actually come back to that. We're going to go full circle, which is kind of crazy with exactly what you're referring to. So, in the 14th century in Europe, the majority of the population was Christian. And at that time, Christian meant Catholic, at least until the Protestant Reformation. But in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 19:10...
Wait, this is the Bible?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Continue.
This is Old Testament, so this is we're all old. We in the 14th century here.
Heard.
But in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 19:10, it says to steer clear of divination, sorcery, and those engaging in witchcraft, and those consulting with the dead. So the Old Testament of the Bible does acknowledge some form of magic.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That it does exist. I think magic exists.
And
personally.
I don't know. In the book of Samuel, it refers to King Saul, who fought with the Hebrews against the Philistines. Now, what's interesting is at this time, he was one that banned all witchcraft and witches from the land, and as king. And
Begone, witch.
however, he decided to consult with a woman believed to have some form of magical powers in an effort to summon the dead spirit of the prophet Samuel in hopes of receiving wisdom from his spirit during the war. But when the woman dug a hole, made a small sacrifice, Samuel's spirit was summoned. Samuel foretold that the king would die in battle, and the very next day, he did.
Ooh. See? You see what magic can do?
So, also in Europe, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar, in the 14th century, there was also something else significant going on, and that would be the Black Plague, or the Black Death. And during this time, nearly 1 in every 3 people would die. That in Europe, guys. All of Europe. So this caused mass hysteria. And this is kind of key to me. Me personally. Mass hysteria is kind of crucial. And it was most believed that the Black Death was the direct work of the devil himself.
Okay.
At the time, those considered to be
The devil.
There's the devil. At this, they were... the Old Testament is strict, man. If you're not familiar with it, it is strict. So at this time, those considered to be religious fanatics were executed for fear that they were working on the devil's behalf.
Oh.
Now this is where we get witchy. The idea that some women were selling their souls to the devil and they too served on the devil's behalf came about. Now remember, there's mass hysteria going on and already a lot of murders in Europe.
Right.
Rumors started flying.
Fling.
Eh?
Grew wings
Do you get the
and
pun?
flew.
Do you get the pun?
No.
Okay, it'll be funnier in a minute. So women seem to have women seeming to have gifted abilities in medicine making and other healing abilities, as well as being skilled in assisting in childbirth, started being accused of brewing concoctions that could be and were equally as harmful, and also on the devil's behalf, of course. Yeah.
Women working for the devil.
So these were often elderly village women, wise women, mothers, sisters, and wives. Germany really stepped out and had some opinions about these women. One German doctor came up with the theory that at the time there was a popular homemade women's perfume, and that contained a type of hallucinogenic that caused men to hallucinate in their present, and that this is where the idea that these select women could fly or levitate.
we could fly. Wow.
From the perfume.
I'm trying to find out.
But no, now she's a witch. She concocted the potion, brew, whatever, that killed that person. Do you see how it flips real easy like that?
They just attach the connection quickly.
Yeah. So the collected
They're flying.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So the collected rumors at this point were that these gifted village women had sold their souls to the devil, and they're flying around. So they gotta fly somewhere, right? Okay. So these women flew on brooms to this shindig, okay?
Okay.
So the Sabbath was a
To the
large...
shindig. All my girls meeting up.
Yeah, they all made it. They
having a
flew
good
on
time.
brooms to this shit, okay? All these men saw this shit, apparently.
If I had a broom, I would use it to ride places.
It would look goofy as fuck now, because they're not the kind of brooms that are made out of, like, stick and straw and shit. We'd all be on, like...
Listen, I'd pimp mine out.
Mr. Clean brooms.
I'd pimp my broom out.
So the Sabbath was a large nocturnal assembly amongst these witches. This is where they participated in a lot of supposed promiscuous naked dancing and chanting. They was worshiping the devil. This was their church service.
That's me in my bedroom after my shower.
Oh, this frightens me, girl, for you. This resulted in the devil himself deciding to join the party. So the devil would show up and a giant orgy would ensue. Girl, what?
Oh, boss daddy. That's not what happens after I get out of the shower.
I'm just making sure.
No. Just the dancing after the shower.
Yeah. Dancing and the chanting, no worshiping of the devil. In 1486, this was a big year for witch hunters.
Oh.
Yeah, that was a real thing. So.
All right, in any of, like, the movies or shows that I watch, I hate the witch hunters always, okay? Unless
Why?
it's, like, the one character that is, like, becomes aware that they're not that bad.
Okay.
Because, like,
So you... Okay.
as long as a witch is not harming you, why do you need to kill them?
In 1486, 2 German monks, they're credited for writing what is called the Maleves Maleficarum.
The Maleves Maleficarum.
Maleves Maleficarum, a.k.a. in English, the Hammer Against Witches.
Hammer Against Witches.
That's the title of this book. So, one quote, "Women are sexually vulnerable beings, thus easy prey for the devil." Now, what they meant by this was not vulnerability in the way that you immediately think. So, here's another quote.
No, they think that us women are sleuths.
Yes, okay, so...
And we do it on purpose.
Here's another direct
We're
quote.
temptatious.
Here's another quote. "What else is a woman but a foe of friendship? Evil, vain, and lustful. All witchcraft comes from carnal lust, which in women is insatiable." 2 German monks could not understand why a beautiful, gifted woman would make their dicks hard, and they were so mad about it.
You can get yourself together,
Yeah,
all right?
They assumed it, no, must be the work of the devil, and not maybe just the natural instincts embedded in our DNA to reproduce and keep the world populated. Nope,
Sounds like somebody I know.
Nope, the
They
devil's
gonna
at work
always
here.
blame it on somebody else.
It's the devil, bitch. So, and for 200 years, it served as the manual for identifying and persecuting witches. In popularity, the book was second only to the Bible.
Oh.
For 200 years. So, we're going to launch into the 16th century here. By the end of the 16th century in Europe, witch hunting hysteria was at its peak. Thousands of women, and sometimes children, were arrested and brought before inquisitors. Okay, elected by the court for examination.
Being questioned.
The women, no, for questioning. The women were restrained, stripped, poked and prodded, and searched of the devil's mark. Any wart, mole, or birthmark was enough. At this time,
This is what jumping to conclusions looks like.
AF. At this time, a confession was still needed to execute an assumed witch. So you couldn't just, it was murder. At least at this point. But, unbelievable torture methods were used to coerce confessions from these women. Okay? During the time of the Inquisitions, a lot of new forms of torture came about. Medieval torture. So this is kind of interesting, I thought. The phrase "to the 3rd degree" came from the time of the Inquisitions.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. The 3rd degree of torture was the degree at which the witch was killed. Now, these witches were suspended from iron cages.
Hang the witches.
Mm-hmm. Well, now, iron cages, while still having bars, while still having access to inflict pain. Iron muzzles, sometimes with spikes, were used to silence them.
Row.
The Iron Maiden made its debut at this time.
What's the Iron Maiden?
That is basically a human-shaped... Did you ever watch the movie Matilda growing up?
Yes.
Okay, you know the chokey?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a human-shaped chokey.
Chokey.
Where you got stabbed with whatever, nails, needles, or whatever.
Beautimus.
All over. Oh, this one's even worse. And I know some of you are immediately going to know what this is, and some of you are not. And for those of you who do not know what this is, I'm not explaining it. Go Google that shit. The Pear of Anguish.
Catch me grabbing my phone.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. You know what? I'm going to be kind to y'all, and I'm going to explain it for you.
Oh, dear
I'm literally
God.
looking it up on my phone right now. Okay, how do you spell it?
The pear, like the fruit, the pear of anguish. Oh gosh, I can't believe.
Okay, to give a short
this.
summary, Google says the pear of anguish, also known as choke pear or mouth pear, is a torture device based on mechanisms of unknown use from the early modern period. That doesn't really tell us anything. A torture device commonly believed to extract confessions from criminals during the medieval era.
Oh, I'll explain it. If you ask me to, I'll tell you.
Well, you just were not about to. Go ahead.
Alright, I'll tell you. The pear of anguish was in fact a pear-shaped device made of, I'm assuming, iron. I think like everything was freaking made of iron at this time.
Where would that go?
It would go in essentially any orifice, but most of these were women, and some of these men got creative and they chose a particular orifice. Now, what this device would do is, I'm going to just put this in the simplest of terms. Women will understand this, men you might not. For any of you who've ever had to get a pap smear,
Girl. Yeah, alright.
Okay, so they also had the breaking wheel. That one's not quite as interesting, I think, as the pear, but it's still...
Breaking wheel.
It's pretty rough.
Explain.
It looks like kind of like
Explain.
like a watermill, like a little
Explain.
human-sized watermill.
Explain.
And they'd get put on it, stretched out on it, and basically it'd like break your bones and stretch you out over like this giant pinwheel that looked like a old school watermill.
Like Mrs. Incredible? Was it Mrs. Incredible that was stretchy?
Yeah. Only these poor women were not like
Ew.
that. Yes.
Oh, that's like
But
that's excruciating.
That's
pain.
the exact image of kind of what it is. So, all right. So the book warned that even while being tortured, witches still had their powers, and it advised that no one looked directly into the witch's eyes. So if someone felt compassion, the book described this as being a false feeling and that the witch was simply casting her spell upon him. The book warned that even while being tortured, witches still had their powers, and it advised that no one look them directly in the eye.
Ooh.
Now, if someone felt compassion, as, you know, I assume most of us would, the book described this as a false feeling, and that it was the witch, in fact, casting her spell upon you.
Oh, bullshit.
So...
Oh, these poor women that actually
these
weren't
freaking
witches.
German monks, man. These two dudes were angry and probably impotent bastards. I don't know. I am going to look into that, but I highly doubt I'll figure that out on Google.
So sorry, ladies.
So, while being tortured, many confessed to whatever they were being accused of. The heavier the torture, the more that was confessed, hoping the torture would stop, hoping that they would at some point receive some form of mercy.
I definitely think if we were back in that time, they would try the both of us.
Probably. Oh, girl,
sure.
You know that birthmark on my lower back? That big ass looking...
Oh, yeah, you would have been taken off for it.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't have even made it past babyhood.
Like, I have, like, little...
You have strawberry marks everywhere, too. Those
Is that what they're called?
cute.
Strawberry marks?
Well, yours look more like angel kisses because they're actual, like, birthmarks. They're not, like, random freckle-sized freckles.
I have them on my tum-tum, guys.
They're really cute. They're really
you.
cute. You look really good in crop tops because of that, because you don't have, like, the same stomach as every other girl. It's cute.
Oh, thank you. Look at her hyping me up, y'all. Look at me feel so
from the
good.
heart. It's from the heart. So, okay.
We're witches. All right.
At this time, fire. Okay. The burning of witches was introduced as well. Okay, and this is kind of what we're more familiar with, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like the general public is
Yes.
used to being burned at the stake, right? It was believed that a witch's body must be wholly consumed by fire and reduced to ashes in order to truly destroy them.
Oh.
So
They were really burned.
that
at the stake.
takes time and high temperatures of heat. that takes time
burning from
to burn the bone.
burn to the core.
Bone takes a long time to burn, and at very high temperatures. I only know that because I also listen to Morbid Podcast, guys. Shout out to them.
It's like a prolonged cremation. Like it literally is. It's like
it's a very prolonged cremation, and it's also here. Listen to this. They were tied to wooden carts and paraded through the cobblestone streets to the town center, where they were tied to the stake and publicly burned to death. So it took a long time, and it was in the middle of the town square.
So what's more fucked up? The fact that these witches were witches and weren't bothering anybody and probably had no relation to any of the deaths, or maybe did, ? We don't know. Now what's more messed up though? The witches or the people watching the witches burn? Why would you want to watch something like that?
This was just entertainment at that time.
Right. Just think about how unacceptable that would be, like if something like that happened in our time.
I mean, people...
Or like that we've witnessed. You never know. Stuff could be happening like somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Well, hey, people today still go and visit the Coliseum. You know what happened? A lot of shit happened there that people enjoyed watching at the time.
At the Coliseum.
All right. So the highest number of killings by fire in a single day was recorded in Germany. More than 130 in a single day. Ooh. So the whole town, it was described that the whole town square looked like a forest fire had gone through because so many stakes had been put up.
Wow, they killed so many women.
130.
A whole forest fire.
In some villages in Germany and France, all women within the village were murdered after the overzealous inquisitors came through.
Dang, what are they going to do? They kill all the women. How are they going to make more offspring?
They really hated women at this time. Well, there was mass hysteria.
Were the men gay?
Somebody had to be somebody had to be blamed for the Black Plague, guys. Oh no, the Black Death.
The headphones started falling off. It's because we're in Austin's
Let me
closet.
take a wine sip. Can I have a wine sip, guys? Is that all right? I won't take too terribly long.
We don't ask for permission.
If it takes too long, we'll just cut out some of it.
Ooh, 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 ooh.
Hold music presented by Shea Baby.
Okay, so we did take a little break, but now we're back. Do you like that?
That was very nice. I appreciate it very much.
Break.
What you guys missed, though, was initially there was some really epic hold music presented by Shea Baby.
I could put that in. This is definitely a goofy episode. They're slaughtering women, okay? Be grateful.
I don't know. What do you think?
Be grateful of Charlie Ann.
Do you like
she
it?
Did. Yeah,
like it?
I'm enjoying myself.
I'm glad. Okay.
I'm learning shit.
Okay. I feel like this is juicy, you know? I feel like this is the stuff that not everybody knows.
Right here.
Okay, so had last left off, in some villages in Germany and France, all women within the village were murdered after the overzealous inquisitors came through. Wiped them all out. People were encouraged to report their neighbors, friends, and family of any sign of possible witchcraft.
Imagine your family snitching on you.
Oof. Well,
I think my wife's a witch.
It could be, at that time, it would be a really good way to get back at your ex.
Don't.
I mean, it's a bit much, but you can't say there ain't someone out there that wouldn't do it. All right, and after enough torture, the already accused were forced to provide names of others as well. So the numbers of arrests and murders were multiplying fiercely. Everybody's being tortured, everybody's accusing each other. The total number of executions is unknown, but scholars estimate anywhere between 60,000 and 300,000 victims.
Wow.
Yeah.
300,000.
Yep. So now let's talk about the idea of witchcraft coming to the New World. This is where we get into the Salem witch trials. Now, in the year of 1692, 16th century, in the small town of Salem, Massachusetts, in just a few months, roughly 200 people were condemned as witches. 14 women and 5 men were hung to death on Salem's Gallows Hill.
Oh, so now men are witches.
Well, there was only 5 of them.
But they suspected. Equality.
Well, I mean, in comparison, you know what I mean?
You know what I mean? Know what I'm saying? Know what I mean?
Okay. So, how did this all start? And why in Salem? Here, the Puritans settled and endured nearly 20 years of Indian wars, fueled by religious divisions and disputes over land. I think there was also some battles with France, the French. The community was really struggling, the small community of settlers, and they clung to their religion, but it offered little comfort as the threat of eternal damnation was heavy.
Wow.
That's a big thing in the Old Testament. Eternal damnation, sacrifices had to be made. I mean, Christ had not been sacrificed. The Son of God had not been sacrificed yet to pay for our sins. So, there was a lot of fear in the Old Testament.
Heard.
This story all started actually in the home of a Puritan minister, the Reverend Samuel Parris, during a time when repentance was more important than the actual truth.
Okay.
Now, it was actually a child's game played by the Reverend's daughter, Elizabeth, and his niece, Abigail Williams, and their household slave, Tituba. They were playing with a makeshift crystal ball.
Hey, I've seen a movie.
They were playing with a makeshift crystal ball. But at this time, a crystal ball was actually a glass of water and an egg cracked into it. That was a crystal ball.
Right.
I did this. I cracked an egg in water to kind of see what it would look like.
Yeah.
The egg yolk kind of drops immediately to the bottom, but the egg whites kind of swirl and to make little shapes.
Looks cool.
Yeah, but
Cool
it's still a
designs.
glass of water with an egg in it.
Okay.
And images would appear in the water and the egg mixture. And it was one night they were playing, and the girls, more specifically Elizabeth and Abigail, so Elizabeth and Abigail, the daughter Elizabeth of the Reverend and the niece of the Reverend Abigail, but they were also with Tituba, the slave, asked questions regarding their future husbands. They were hoping to see an attractive and wealthy figure, but instead the form that took shape in the water appeared to them as that of a coffin.
Oh.
So, seized by apparitions of death, the girls were soon thrown into convulsions.
Yep.
A physician found nothing physically wrong with the girls, but did diagnose them as being under the authority of an evil hand. All right. So these Puritans believed the devil wreaked havoc in the world through people, human conduits, or witches who tortured children.
He possessed men and women.
So within days, 9 other girls in the village were stricken with the same strange affliction. They all experienced convulsions, contorting their bodies, agitated fits, and they complained of painful prickling of the skin.
Ooh. It's the devil scratching from the inside.
Under the heavy questioning of the Reverend Parris, the girls gave the names of 3 witches, whom they said had caused their possession. Sorry, let me repeat that. Now, under the heavy questioning of the Reverend Parris, the girls gave the name of 3 witches, whom they said had caused their possession. Tituba, the house slave, was one, even though she was with the 2.
Oh, yeah, I remember. They blamed it on her.
Sarah Good, a poor, pregnant beggar woman. And Sarah Osborne, a widow, rumored to have had an affair with one of her servants. And she'd also long abandoned attending church. So that was a big, she doesn't attend church. You needed to repent.
Shame on you, girl.
All 3 were outsiders in the community, easy targets for suspicion. Tituba, the slave, has no last recorded name. Now, Tituba initially denied afflicting the girls in any way at all, but then she did confess to practicing witchcraft on the devil's orders, and she claimed that the other 2 suspected witches, Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne, had forced her to afflict the girls, Elizabeth and Abigail.
I think for some part of my brain is saying that she didn't actually practice witchcraft, that she just confessed to that.
Yeah, she was one of 3 accused.
I feel like she's lying, though.
She's one of 3 accused, and she blamed it on the other 2 accused. She probably saw that as her only way out.
But I don't think, for some reason, part of me doesn't really think that she was doing witchcraft. I think she just said so they'd stop probably, torturing her.
I think we're going to go over theories, and I'll tell you which one I definitely agree with, and it's...
Heard. I'm just thinking, dang, why you gotta blame it? Why you gotta blame it on the slave, bro?
Yeah. She doesn't even
Shame that
she didn't even have a
even
last
slaves
name
back then.
recorded. She had no last name.
Yeah.
So, even though Tituba blamed both the other girls, both Osborne and Good maintained their innocence. And Osborne died in prison, while Good's husband turned against her in court, testifying that she was a witch. So, I don't know why he had beef with her, but the Inquisitors, I mean, they were very trained in what they were doing.
Oh.
So,
sorry, that was my fault. Ding.
Tituba the slave, she didn't even have a last name that we know of.
Poor baby.
All were arrested on February 29th during one of the coldest winters ever recorded, actually.
It was a night. On a cold winter's night, 3 girls were taken into custody.
Now, Tituba initially denied afflicting the girls in any way at all, but then she did confess to practicing witchcraft on the devil's orders. And she claimed that Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne, the other 2 accused of the 3, had forced her to afflict the girls, the daughter of the Reverend Elizabeth and the niece Abigail.
I feel like she's lying.
I think she is trying to find a smart way out of this, and she's one of the 3 accused and blamed the other 2. And they were all 3 regarded as,
or maybe all the women were just possessed during this time.
Maybe
I said possessed.
I don't.
Maybe they were just possessed.
Both Osborne and Good maintained their innocence, and Osborne died in prison, while Good's husband turned against her in court, testifying that she was a witch. So, did the husband have beef with her? Why did the husband testify that she was a witch? But then again, the Inquisitors, they were well trained in what they were doing.
See, what I was saying earlier. Look, they're the husband's, giving up his wife. What? Yeah. I mean, I guess he was scared shitless, so he wanted to get her out of the house.
This in particular really upsets me. Good had a 4-year-old daughter who was imprisoned.
Oh.
And eventually gave testimony against her own mother.
A 4-year-old? Really?
I'm really thinking that was coerced, and that's just heartbreaking to me. So her mom, Good, was also pregnant at the time of her arrest, and she gave birth while in prison, and the baby died.
Oh.
Yeah.
Dang.
She was convicted and hung there shortly after.
I'm hurting for my women right now.
Yeah, she was convicted and hung pretty quickly after that. So she didn't have to live with all that's awful. Okay, so Tituba was still held in custody until May. Remember, they were released on February 29th. Tituba was still held in custody until May and then released. Why did these girls make the accusations? So the 2 girls, remember, the 2 of the 3.
Because I think that they had malicious intents. Maybe Tituba wasn't influenced, but I just feel like they were throwing it on her and other people that wasn't themselves. So I think the girls were in the wrong. For some reason, I just have that feeling. I could be wrong. Let me find out if my theory is correct.
So scholars today have come up with 2 substantial theories. One theory is that one or more of the girls suffered from some extreme form of psychological disorder resulting in fits. I believe that one of them could have had a psychological disorder that could have resulted in fits, and all the others started taking after her and acting up because they were and then they started getting attention. But 2 or more to be psychologically damaged enough to have fits.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know.
The second theory is that they were intentionally being deceptive. That these girls wanted attention.
Yes.
So I kind of believe a little bit in both. And this is why. The Puritans lived a very strict lifestyle, heavily governed by the ways of the Old Testament. Though it sounds extreme today, local authorities took these accusations very seriously. A tribunal was established to investigate the charges against these 3 women.
Yeah.
So this hysteria would spread to 24 other outlying villages.
Wow.
And by September, rumor has it. I love it. So by September, so May to September of 1692, the jails overflowed with over 200 accused witches. 27 were found guilty, and 19 were hanged.
Hanged.
You think that's
hanged.
Bad? They were hanged. After execution, their bodies could not be given a proper Christian burial, of course.
No, they were witches. So what'd they do with the bodies then?
They were left to hang and rot on Gallows Hill.
That's it.
So, how did this all come to an end in Salem?
How did it all break
In
down?
the 24 other outlying villages.
Okay. What was the solution?
There really wasn't a solution. So, the tribunal might have just accused one victim too many. And that in particular victim they accused was the wife of the governor of Massachusetts herself.
Oh. Because she's governor's wife, she gets a pass?
No. No. They went too far. The trial was abruptly stopped. They went too far.
Whose decision was that?
I don't know, but they had accused the governor of Massachusetts, the state. They were a small village, Salem.
Like the head honcho's lady.
Yes.
So, man.
Like basically
just did some unnecessary
accused
killing.
the first lady.
They was just so ready to hand the fire to everybody else, but oh no.
It was shut down.
Okay.
The trials abruptly stopped.
All right.
So, society was also moving away from its belief in the supernatural, though. Reason being, sciences were evolving. So there was now more explanations being provided for what could have happened other than witchcraft.
Great. Don't we love how after we make horrible mistakes, we realize the solution? We're like, oh, well, it also could have been that too. Maybe I was acting irrational.
It was only roughly 400 years later. We're in the 20th century now.
Whoopsie.
So by the 20th century, the dreaded sorceress was reduced to the more stereotypical Halloween witch of popular culture.
Yes.
So, no. That's the haggard witch with the cauldron and the warts and the...
There's that,
evil.
and then there's sexy witch.
There's a lot of type of witches now. And we're going to get into
Witchy
that.
woman.
So today, the idea of witches and witchcraft have, in a way, been rebirthed. An estimated of 200,000 men and women in the U.S. and Europe have dedicated themselves to following the ancient path of the witch.
Can I note that there are good and bad witches?
Mm-hmm.
Just want to put that in there.
So many believe that the negative connotations of the witch are false and aren't malicious at all, as believed for centuries before. So what sparked the modern revival of ancient witchcraft? Scholars traced its rebirth back to the work of a young British archaeologist, Margaret Murray.
Margaret Murray.
She was an archaeologist. That's pretty impressive, I think, at that time. But in her controversial book, The Witch Cult in Western Europe, published in 1921, she presented a very startling theory for that time. She insisted that in European history, witchcraft had not been an obscure cult, but rather a dominant religious force. She argues that the witches who were prosecuted through the 15th through 17th centuries were actually the practitioners of a pagan religion. Historians quickly discredited her beliefs, but her popular book still sparked a renewed fascination with witchcraft. By the mid-20th century, modern witchcraft had become the spiritual path of thousands of believers, and they called this religion Wicca.
Wicca.
Derived from the ancient Anglo-Saxon word meaning craft of the wise. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Inspired by these early origins, modern witches rely on the simplest of ritual elements: candles, herbs, incense, and crystals, which they believe can hold magical power. But how do these powers work?
I was going to say, if you're like me, do you charge your crystals when the full moon is out?
So they harness the powers of nature to force a very powerful prayer. Of all the rituals of contemporary witchcraft, the Sabbath is the most important. Remember we talked about the Sabbath before?
Yes.
How they flew on broomsticks, had a giant orgy with the devil?
Yes.
So
I do not practice the Sabbath.
The modern witch's Sabbath is in no way similar to how we previously described it during the burning times and the time of the Inquisitions.
No, they were...
There is no pact with the devil.
No.
Instead, the roots are traced back to much earlier traditions, the pagan rituals that mark the Earth's changing seasons. They celebrate the changing of the seasons. So that's why you have, I think they celebrate, on the shortest day of the year, the longest year of the day...
the longest year of the day.
For these witches, the divine is not separate from this world. There is no final judgment coming, heaven or hell. They believe they are in an ever-changing and evolving circle of life.
Circle of life.
Did I say he was going to come out and do a whole 360?
What a nice way of putting it.
They do abide by the code of conduct that can be summarized by the phrase, "Do what you will, but harm none.
So remember, tell your mama, tell a friend of a friend, tell your grandma if she likes, true crime and she wants to maybe hear about some witches and supernatural here and there, maybe some mythology. You know where the place is at. It's a We the Jury podcast. Make sure you're following us on IG, We the Jury podcast. I'm going to say it every episode. Don't get at me. And then if you would like to inquire, the email is We the Jury podcast 2023 at gmail.com. Anything you got to say?
Yeah, I just want to say this was a really fun episode to do, you guys. I had a lot of fun with this. So we're still definitely going to cover the other two options, the Unabomber and the Dyatlov Pass incident at some point. I remember my sister's going to be in on that one. And what was the one that homie said that he wanted to be in too when I got here today?
He wants to do Jeffrey Dahmer. Now, I need you guys to be on my side for this one. I know we did Ted Bundy for our first two episodes, and I feel like we just did that because it's, from Florida, and we wanted to represent for our first episode. But I think that they would like to do Jeffrey Dahmer, and I think that Jeffrey Dahmer is a little bit too played out for me right now, especially with the Netflix series that came out. Like, I just feel like it's a little bit too big, so I feel like we should definitely wait quite a while till the hype goes down. So give us your opinions, pretty please.
Yeah, I have a list of like almost 300 cases that I want to cover. So
yeah,
and he's on there. So honestly, I could care less at what point
Austin
we cover him.
Austin just really wants to do it with you. That's who wants to join us. My bestie.
All right, so let's sign off. It is what time is it?
Girl, I gotta watch. It's 9:37, late at night. But guess what? We're getting ready to go eat. Appreciate all y'all. Thank you so much for the support. And this has been a witchy
episode
of We the Jury podcast. Deuces.
Bye.